Hello, welcome back. Hello, everyone. It's Ross here from Britain's Hidden History. I've got John Griffiths and Adam, who are doing this wonderful work on translating Roman coins, showing how you can trace British language all the way back. And we're throwing some doubt on how much of what we think is Latin actually is Latin. And I'll do some more at some point on what Latin actually was. And I've got an interview with Alan Wilson on that very subject. So I will try and get that. It might even be up before this video, in which case you'll be one step ahead of what John and Adam have seen. Just give a quick summary of that. It's talking about, was this an artificial created language to allow diplomacy between different countries? But anyway, moving on from that, if you remember last time, we're looking at Roman coins that can be read using the old British Colburn system. And John and Adam have done a lot more research since then. So what are we looking at today, gents?
We're going to look at a stone that's come our way, which is interesting for very many reasons. So it's a bit of a surprise in the sense of trying to recognize how to read it.
Okay.
So it came about by talking to Monica Escobar, who lives in the region above Lake Constance there, and we'd been talking about the British connection, the Welsh connection in the area, and she's posted presentations on the group before now on St. Lurig, and she's posted items to do with the names in the region too. So there are interesting things like names which have that Welsh sound. We certainly found one which was Mont Arvon, which is in one of the mountains.
How are you spelling Arvon?
Arvon is A-F-O-N, so it was Mont.
Oh, Avon, right, that's what Avon, right. Okay.
So it's literally mountain river, and there was a town called that in a valley off a large river called something else, but essentially the town was called Mountain River.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so a few other things that she's put my way in the sense of names of places. And I think she's put a few things up online as well. But one of the things she gave me was a picture of the sickness stone in Malkenwagen. And I think the stone's in the State Museum.
Right.
The Lands Museum, I think it's called, in Stuttgart. So these things are there. And I thought, well, I've had a look at the coins, the Roman emperors. I've done 100 between Julius Caesar and Theodosius II, and they're all.
Yeah, I just want to say we'll put more of that up on the channel. It's brilliant.
Yeah,
I'm hoping John will get a book together at some point.
That I think would be an excellent read all the way through. Literally one emperor after the next.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be a great reference book as well.
Yeah. So I'm having a break from that. I'm going to go back to it and have a look at, because I've gone like a spine down the center, but I'm going to go laterally across to some of the emperors, especially the ones that we have in mind are British, and just to glean more information.
Right.
So in my holiday from the coins, this has come up, and I thought I'd have a look at it, and to see what I can make of it. It's down as dated to something like 180 AD, I think, and it's there was a villa in the area, and they found some in the remnants of that, and in a sense a grave as well. So it's been, I think it was dug and looked at in the 1860s. So they looked at it, they got the grave goods out, and we can show those pictures. Should we mosey on to? So these things turned up.
Oh, brilliant.
Find where. No bodies, of course. No physical bones or body present.
You say, of course. What do you think?
Well, I think they're all cremated. I think they tend to be cremated if it's Roman.
Right.
It's the first question I asked. Monica, any bones?
Yeah. Where's the bodies? Yeah.
Any bodies for this tombstone? But she asked.
I think this is one of the problems with the British as well, isn't it? They used to have what they call sky burials, don't they? Where the birds would pluck them clean and they burn the bones, so you're not going to find anything at all.
So there's the graveware that they've found, and they've got a translation for the stone as well. Let's have a look at that.
Oh, it's beautiful stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, oh, it's lovely stuff, isn't it? The ceramic is great.
Right.
So what we're looking at here is a German translation. I can't read that very clearly, but I worked out the British underneath it, which is Sickner.
Oh, the German bit, die Arbeitsung.
Yeah.
Steht für Merito.
Oh, very good.
Merente Monumentum Memoriam.
Fine.
Well, it just says the message, isn't it? I think. The next bit. Yeah, the next bit. I haven't.
Underneath, I've got
Monica
of Crispinus. Lived 40 years. Proculus, your husband. Love this tomb after birth, which is I'm not quite sure about that particular part of the message. But we have here the Crispinus, or the Crispini family, and we have a marriage to Proculus. So these are known names, but it's very difficult to trace. For example, if you put down Sickner Crispinus, can't locate it, and also Sickner isn't a name. It's not a female name. When you look online or in books for that name, it doesn't exist. So that starts, alarm bells going straight away. Well, okay, there's a problem there. Is there another way that we can look at that? So that's one of the things which gave me permission to see what I could make of it.
Yes.
So we had a look around at that point to have a look at the Crispini family. I think there's a
heraldry here.
Heraldry there. That's a piece of heraldry that the family hold. So I looked at that and noted the rose, the 5 rose motif. Obviously, we got a lion, and we got blue and yellow gold in there, which is interesting. So from that,
quite a strange one, isn't it? Actually, because well, they're saying some sort of lion is sort of two-tone as well, isn't it?
Yeah. So that could be that could connote joined lines, perhaps half one line, half another. But the motifs are there, and in a sense, the leaf motifs that are there are on the stone itself. So if we look at the lettering, if we go back to the stone, Ed.
Yeah.
We've got you see the 4 lines there. There are spaces in between some of the lettering. We get this kind of leaf motif.
Oh gosh, yes, yeah. And they zoomed in. I can
tied
see
in
now, yes.
too, and that seems to be possibly tied in with one of the motifs of the family. And we do see the name there, Crispini.
Could be, yes.
Yeah, so that's telling. So obviously, I used those leaves as break marks when I took the 4 lines and divided the words to into chunks, as it were, to have a go at. We'll go back to that.
Yeah.
Anyway, go back to the family. They seem to be connected to the. Let's go back to that last slide. Then.
Yeah.
Let's turn this off.
That one.
Yeah, that's the Crispini. This seems to be the family that go through. So from early genealogy, which links it to that Trojan past. It's many generations ago. But right at the top there, if you can see the top name, we've got Alba, 5th king of Alba, and he's tied in as George I, 77th great grandfather. And in that sense, this line is. The spine of it is connected to George I. In that
the Hanoverians.
Well, in that sense, they're only tied into it because of a marriage later on, but they claim it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it's an important line to follow because it follows through this family. So you can follow this through, and it unfolds right the way through to the Roman emperors. If we go to the other pages, Ed. we can climb up through into periods which are closer to Constantine Chlorus at the bottom of the page there. You can see how it gets to it. So they are immediately involved in proximity and closeness to the Roman emperors. So we have Domitian there.
Where's Domitian?
I think he's in the middle of the page with
yes, I can see it
around him.
Yeah, Domitian Longine.
Gordian 1, yeah. Gordian 2 there. We've got Constantine Chlorus at the bottom of the page. And if we look at above Constantine Chlorus, we've got Flavius Eutropius. He's married to a Crispini. So you can see how this thing is wound together. Next page. Takes us through to Alexander the Great. Where's that come from? Constantine the Great.
Right, so we're up to the 4th century now, yeah?
Yeah, and to Constantius. We can see Crispus as well, the son of Constantine the Great, in that kind of tie-in as well. So that's interesting. So
where have these workings come from again?
These just come from sketching the names down from a genealogy site.
Okay, okay. So it's not directly related to the carving yet?
Not in the sense of 3 of the readings that I've got. This is the strange thing. I've not got 1 or 2. I've got 3 readings which are plausible. The plausible renditions for people on this line.
Right, so you get some background of the line, right? I can see there a lot of research going to that, yes.
Crispus is there. He's the first person. When I looked at the stone, literally, I looked at it blind. I just looked at it and I thought, what can I make of this? Since I have permission, since there's no Signa, what can I make of it without any other information?
Any props? Yeah, just diving in.
I haven't done this line yet. I haven't done this research. I just said, let me look blind and see what I find. So I found Crispus first, and I found a reading for him which is plausible. And I think contacted Monica after that, and she was very pleased with it. But
she's good at this period, yeah.
It's too good to be true. It's later than the dating for the stone, which is about, I think it's 180. So it's much later for it. She came up with a character who was much earlier. What's his name?
Well, just to jump in quickly, I think the dating of these stones is pretty much a guess anyway.
And he's closer to about 9 BC. So then I looked at him, and he is on the line, and again he's the 56th great grandfather of George I.
Right, yes.
And there's a little bit about him in history, in the sense of he was when young he was a civil servant, and he worked in the mint. He was a triumvir monetalis, and he knew Drusus. I think he was a personal friend of Drusus, and he got involved with him later in his campaign in Germany. So he was actually there, I think, at the time when Drusus and Tiberius were cutting that passage through the Alps and making their way through and subduing the area and making that region theirs and calling it Rhaetia. So right at the early period, this family member's there. So that's interesting. There seems to be a tie which puts him in the right time and place. But again, it's very early. This is about this is about 15 BC. So it's a good deal earlier than the dating for the stone. And yet the components are there. There's a bit of a description of him which comes up later in the reading. Somebody at the time, contemporary writer, characterized him not very positively as a useless and defiant.
Well, I can see he's also tied in there with the Mark Antony and
Yeah.
all that, isn't he? It's interesting.
Yeah. So
Possible
he
Egyptian
was a
connections.
supporter. He got into a bit of trouble, and he also was accused of being one of the lovers of Julia the Elder. So he was either banished or executed.
Yeah, you don't want to upset Tiberius, do you?
Yeah, you don't cross him, do you?
No.
So that story's there, and curiously, in considering the word hoard that we've called, we can possibly get that narrative out too, which is really strange. It's really odd. So I'll go over that later. I'll go over the three readings. So we put that one over too. I sent that one over to Monica, and she thought, well, that's uncanny, you know, in that sense. Yes, you do have a sense of a report, a character report of a person, which seems to fit, which is very unusual. So she went away and thought about that for a while. She'd been checking up and down the family lines, and eventually came up with the third person, which is Titus Flavius Claudius Sulpicianus. And his dates are good because he's born about 137, so he's right in the right period for the stone. And that was the last one I did. I'd already contacted you about this particular stone, Ross, and we were meant to talk, weren't we? And then life intervened.
Yes, we had some technical issues, didn't we?
Yeah.
And no Adam.
In the space, hang on. And in the space that intervened, that was it. This character came forward, and he's on the list again. He's in this line of that's can be connected to George I. He's the 38th grandfather, and he's got a well-recorded history, and his narrative can also be found by translating the letters too. And for me, this is the strongest of the translations.
Yeah, because Commodus has got strong connections with Britain, of course, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Hang on, and Septimus Severus as well. That's interesting as well. On the arrival of the new emperor, Septimus Severus.
Yeah.
Because, of course, that ties in with so-called Hadrian's Wall and who Severus was and all this kind of thing.
Yeah. And Titus Flavius also is he's thought to have been connected with a plot to murder Commodus. And one of the conversations I had with Monica was she felt that his sister was married to Commodus, which makes an even closer call. Which was interesting, but I haven't verified that. It's something that we had in conversation, but it does need checking. But he's at the right time. He's kind of, the fingers pointed at him for being involved.
I'm sure I've read about that conspiracy somewhere.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
And later on, he married his daughter to Pertinax, who became emperor. And
right, okay.
And there's another British connection with Pertinax, if I'm right. So this gets very close. After Pertinax died, there was another struggle for power, and it looked as if Titus Flavius was offered the purple, and he made an offer to the Praetorians, but a higher offer came in from Julianus, and they took his money, and he was made emperor.
It's a funny old business how they appoint to these emperors, isn't it?
Yeah, it's funny, right? How much money have you got?
Well, it makes me think of what was happening in the 18th century when they brought in William, and then they brought in Hanoverians, and
yeah. Who wants it?
How has someone else has got the right to choose? You know, this is the funny thing.
Yeah.
And how much power does the top man actually have?
Yeah.
So yeah. Strange resonances all the way down, isn't there, on our handovers? He didn't survive the following emperor's accession, though, because he supported the other guy, Clodius Albinus, and he was taken out in case he might be in a bit of trouble. So, but again, his story comes out very clearly in the translations, uncannily closely. So we'll get onto those. We'll read them. All right, what have we got next? Right. First thing I did was to work on the Latin.
Right, so you're going back to the stone now, yeah? Translation of the stone. Okay.
So essentially, there are 4 lines which divide the text, and obviously the leafing gives a kind of interval in. So that's the main interval in which you gave on a hard line. And where I felt there might be a break within that or a sub break, I gave a dotted line. So this is how I looked at it.
All right, okay. So the hard lines, there's a definite gap, and the dotted lines, your suggestions for gaps.
Yeah, these things suggest, or they seem to suggest themselves. What can I do with that? So
okay,
from that, from those possibilities, then I broke down the word hoard. I found what I could. So one of the things with Sickner and sick, the C can be G, and that opens up another sense. So it's very like the Welsh in that sense. You can use it, and that gave me other possibilities. So signantia and so on and so forth. Signatio, and it just breaks it open. You've got another possibility. If we break the Sickner in 2, obviously we've got sicker, dagger, we've got sicarius, we've got murderer, and we've got na, which can give us narrow or tell, narrate. And so you begin to get the options on possibilities, and that works all the way through. I don't want to go through every word here because I think people online can stop the film and have a look at things and quietly go over it and come to some mind of it. But the first thing I did was, the first one I called forward reading it was Crispus. And what seemed to come to mind,
Ascari, that's what I was thinking of when you mentioned that. Sicarius, Ascari, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There's to do with daggers and the Bible and stuff. That's right.
So I found, I went through and felt for possible narrative. So it essentially is feeling your way through. So I got this narrative for Crispus, which was marking the sign of the cross. Brandish hostility, Flavius Julius. Christ affirm, Christ he speaks. Family of the people used to the sea, greatness. So that seems to fall into all sorts of associations for the idea of the British line and the Christ line, and the relationship with the Trojan history too.
Wow, there is a certain
yes, marking the sign of the cross. Well, Crispus, like his father, was taught by the lead Christian scholar of his day. The Christian movement was coming through. He may have actually come through earlier than we think. If he's presenting the sign of the cross and properly associating with it completely, he's taking the cross with him on his journeys into that region. And Crispus did go into that region after the Alani had taken it over about 260. The Romans went out there to reassert their authority and there's a piece about that which Monica sent to me to kind of back that up. That section there, around 260, the Alemanni finally overran the entire border wall and conquered Upper Germany. So they're busy asserting their claims to the area, and the Romans had to reconsolidate later. So this matches in a sense with that tussle for the ground. So it appears in that the affirmation with Christ, and then he speaks family of people used to the sea greatness. That could very well be likened to an association with the British, an association with the Christ family, and with identification with it. And if you wanted the Holy Grail, in a sense, for finding backup for the British claims, this stone in your dreams could possibly be it. So it's you know, it's a bit of a wow, this one. So it's there as a, you know, as a conjectural reading. It's there as a possibility. So that,
yeah, I guess stands up as much as the other one does, because there doesn't seem much to prop up the mainstream version of it, is there?
yeah,
No.
Because proc is a thrust or a drive, it says here. Just looking at some of the words as we go along.
yeah, there are possibilities. There are other ways you can nuance it. Shall I read the Welsh version now? So of that line, there's a Welsh version too.
Oh, go on then. Yeah.
All right. So we've done the Latin. Now, if we take the same material, we take the same narrative or idea of the narrative. Let's see whether it can follow through in the Welsh. So what we get in the Welsh is something which goes hand in glove with that. We've got, it reads, a lord's son, customary to swear humility, a pinnacle, we ourselves to prosper. Well done, welcome, a great company, welcome, a bleak to range, a step of placing going to maintain, to make war. So as a statement, that really does feel like support for the Latin idea. And in the sense of a pinnacle or a force or a great wave of power, in that sense, at the time of Constantine the Great and his son, that seems to follow. It seems to be a happy meeting.
Yep, I'm with you. Yeah,
we have at the beginning, you know, customary to swear humility. We might have a reference to a new.
So can you check which dictionary did you use mostly for this?
I used the 1688.
Okay.
I used the 1806, and the latest one I used was the
same ones that I've got here. Then, right?
1861. Yeah,
little red one, and then
that's the one. Yeah,
the big printout ones from Gian.
Yeah, I've got the slightly early one than that. I haven't got it at hand though, Ross. It's
the Salisbury one as well, isn't it? 1588. Well, this one, the Jones, the whole bunch here.
Yeah. So I've got 3 dictionaries, Ross.
Well, that's the earliest one, I think, the Salisbury one, isn't it?
Yeah, I've heard of that one.
There's not many words in it, unfortunately, but it does go back supposedly to 1580s, I think. Got this kind of layout.
One of the most, it looks fabulous. One of the most important things to do with this work is to have a good range of dictionaries. I'm sure all this could be nuanced again.
Yeah,
there's work to be done on ironing this out and finding even happier, you know. Words.
No, I agree. It's one of those things you kind of brought up. You just look things up in a dictionary. We actually sometimes you have to look up things in a few dictionaries, don't you?
That's right. Yeah.
It's not quite as simple as we're told.
The same thing with the Latin. It's very hard to get a good Latin dictionary. I've got a couple of everyday Latin dictionaries, but I've got a couple of specialist ones too, which are really helpful. So I've had to go between the 4 Latin dictionaries.
So how consistent are they in these Latin ones? How often do they think there's conjecture about words or different views, or is it like this word always means that? Is it how firm is it?
They tend to agree, but there's always there are other suggestions or extensions. So they tend to hold together, but there are things which aren't there and the things which are there. So I think you're happy to have as many dictionaries as you possibly can. Just look at a word. So yeah, that's part of the issue, is having good dictionaries and having a range of them and teasing out the possibilities. Obviously, the older the better.
Yes, I agree with that. So I got proc here as well as a thrust or a drive. So that's really
That's nice.
that would have come up in there, wouldn't it? Yes. Yeah, it's amazing. We got to look at these inscriptions more, aren't we? Because they're it's really interesting. I've got to put it up. It's only an audio conversation because I was taking Alan his breakfast and he was still in bed. But it's very interesting his view that the Latin is a sort of artificial construct.
Yeah, it really might be, in a sense, a bridge, because the more I looked at the coins, the more they became British in my imagination, and feeling. The Latin dissolved, and they began to feel flexible to the British. And I noticed when there were letter shapes which were ambiguous and could be one thing or another,